Welcome to the Ripple Effect Martial Arts Podcast. All right. Well, I am really happy to be here with Mr. Ben Stott. He is a second-degree black belt. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
He is an instructor at Ripple Effect Martial Arts. Thank you, Mr. Stott, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
I want to start off by asking, how did you get your start in the martial arts? I kind of think I know a little bit, but did you start at Ripple Effect, or had you had any martial arts experience before that?
I did. Very, very little. I think I was around 4, and my mom got me started at like the rec center in Windsor where I live, and I wasn't a big fan of it.
Okay, why?
I was a little young, and I had a really close connection with my mom, and I didn't like being separated from her.
Wow. Okay. And
then fast forward 7 years, when I was 10, my sister won, I think, a free month at Ripple Effect, and the intro was right after school, and I didn't really have a choice to go because it was like right after school, and I got there and I met the instructors, and I did a little bit of the intro, but I was still like unsure about it. And then during the second class, I was watching, and I already had my shoes off, and then someone convinced me to just hop on out and do it.
What did it feel like to? I love how you say that, by the way. I already had my shoes off, and so it took a little convincing. You are an instructor, and you've been instructing as a junior instructor, and for the past year as a full instructor, you've seen a lot of what you experienced as a 10-year-old with other kids coming on the mat for the first time. Do you find that there are kids who are hesitant?
Yeah. Especially like I've seen in intros. We get siblings as well, kind of like the same experience I had with my family at the time. And, there are some that they'll just watch, and there are some that, they'll hop on out and actually try it with their sibling.
For listeners who don't know about the intro process that Mr. Stott's referring to, that's a private lesson, essentially. And can you describe that? What is an intro lesson? Someone is really coming into the school maybe for the very first time. What happens?
Yeah, so an intro essentially is, you come in, you get to meet the instructors and everything. We give you a tour around the school. And then we go into a room privately, and then we just, we go over some of the rules and everything, and do some of the punches and kicks that we teach at white belt as well.
When you were learning during your first lesson, what do you remember about that? You're actually on the mat now, and what was it like?
The intro, I remember I was very upfront with my mom, like, okay, I'm not gonna do this. I'm just watching. And then I get out there, or we're in the back room and everything, and I see my mom and my sister do it, and then I decide, I'll do a couple of these moves with them. They look kind of interesting. I'll try them. I think I did maybe 2 of the 4 moves that they showed us. And then when I got onto the mat, it was like towards the end of the class. Like when I was watching my mom and my sister get their white belts, was when I decided that, okay, I'll do this.
That's interesting. So I want to know about what were the 2 moves that you didn't do?
I want to say it was the front punch and the front kick that I did not do.
Okay.
And I don't know why.
It's interesting. I mean, as a 10-year-old, that's a lot of pressure, really, just to try to, you have an instinct. I'm not sure if I want to try this. I'm trying it. I'm not sure how do I do this? It's a lot of pressure. Has karate since, like you said, it's been 7 years. Do you feel like martial arts has helped you deal with pressure?
Yeah, in some ways. And then another thing too, with that is I was never, especially at that time, when I was 10, wasn't the most athletic back then. And so when I actually joined, I was thinking, and this was like the main factor that got me to stay, was this is a sport that I like, that I can actually do.
Expand on that a little bit. You weren't great on those. Were you great at martial arts when you were in those first months?
No, I wasn't that great. I was, though it was something that I knew I could get better at, something I could learn, and something I could improve on
Is
because it
that,
didn't require kicking a soccer ball around.
but it requires kicking some other things around, right? And
Yeah,
what did it have to do with what? Why did you feel inspired to or motivated to continue?
I don't know. I guess it was just it felt like a sport that suited me, and
Did
that's
that
why I engaged with it.
have anything to do with the instructors? Did you have any role models? Do you remember that back then?
Yes, yes. The instructors there, mainly Mr. Robinson, was a big role model. He was the first instructor I ever met there. He did my first intro, and he was a big mentor to me all the way up the way up to now.
What are some qualities about Mr. Robinson? What do you think of back then or now? What are some qualities that he exhibits as a teacher that help you?
I don't know. He was fun, engaging. Like when I was a student under him, like when I first met him at the intro, I was like, okay, this seems a little different than when I did this 7 year or when I was like 4. And Mr. Robinson had a big part in that as well. And once I got up to training as an instructor, he was a big role model for me there too. Just how he could be fun with the students and in the class and everything, but still could bring the discipline on when it was needed. And that was something I was trying to work on too.
Did you feel like you needed that discipline? Was there some sense back then, like I need this? I need someone to push me, or was that more your mom?
Um, I guess once I got on there and I had my family and I was doing it with them and everything, I it was always I was a really quick learner with some of this stuff, and I picked it up really quick. So I would always like peek ahead at the next belt and try and learn that ahead of time.
Wow.
That caught up to me in prep cycle though.
Give me and everyone listening your impression of prep cycle. What is that?
It was a change. It was a big change. I was definitely more used to being on my own, doing my own thing, going at my pace when I do my forms or combinations. And prep cycle really had me slow down and focus more on not just knowing it, but having the technique part of it there too.
For the benefit of listeners who don't know, what Mr. Stott is describing is on the route, essentially 3 years of martial arts training before you enter this preparatory cycle is what that's short for, to train for your black belt. You are responsible essentially for your own development. I mean, you described that well. You're studying on your own and you're responsible for your own advancement.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it comes down to like a lot of the belts as well that you're responsible for practicing your underbelt stuff and everything for tests coming up because we can only show you so much in class and everything and do so much. And though when you're in prep cycle as well, you do have that team as well, your team of people in your group, and they really help push you and you help push them, and then you all get to black belt together and everything.
Did you, I'm trying to remember, did you enter prep cycle with your sister and your mom?
I did. I was in prep cycle. My whole family was in there.
What was life like at home? I remember for me, it was karate 24/7, pretty much, at least in my mind for those months. And I imagine for you, everybody must have been pushing each other, right? Do we know our weapons forms? Do we know this? What was it like?
Well, the dynamic at home during that time was it was interesting because we had myself, I remembered a lot of those things. I remembered how to do all the forms and everything, and the combos. We had, and then my mom, and my sister, they would ask me, and we would all practice together. Though,
What's it like to teach kids as an instructor and understand where they're going? Do you envision them as a black belt even when they're young and starting?
yeah, yeah. Especially like there are certain students that like I've taught their intro before, and they've grown so much in like the few months I've gotten to know them, and they've been training with us, and they're at like high gold belt, stuff around there, and I'm like, it feels like yesterday that I like just taught your intro, and now you're moving up.
Wow. And in 3.5 years, you'll be at their black belt test. Did I just blow your mind? So you're 17 now. I'm doing the math here. And for a high schooler, for a teenager, that is an incredible amount of responsibility.
Yes, it is.
How does it feel? Do you enjoy having that kind of responsibility?
I will say when I first got out there and was starting to teach, like I would help my family and everything. And I would help them, remember what the next move of the form was or what this combination was. And I was used to that because they're my family and everything. When I started teaching, it was definitely a different experience, and there was a little more pressure. And so it was definitely interesting just making sure I didn't screw anything up.
I'm sure you've had experiences where you maybe your mind went blank, or you did mess something up, or you said a wrong move or something like that. How does owning your mistakes come into play when you're an instructor for you?
I used to take it a little harder, like when I would mess up something in class, or I would like miss speak on a move or something. Used to take myself a little harder on that, and I tried not to show it to the students or everything. I still tried to give off that I am confident, I do know what I'm doing. And then now it's just I can just laugh that off and move on.
Do you feel like your instruction becomes stronger through going through that kind of experience?
Yes, yes, especially like looking back on it, looking back on the past couple of years I've been teaching, like from when I first started to now, I was a lot more, I don't want to say paranoid, but I guess that's the best word I can find for that. I had a
Yeah.
lot more nerves. I was a little more nervous starting to teach. There you go. There's a better word for it. I was a little more nervous at the time and wasn't as confident in my teaching as I am now.
I feel like there are two kind of spans of anticipation of making a mistake. And some kids don't have that fear at all. They will just go out, whether it's karate or anything else, and try things. They aren't afraid to speak in front of people. They're very outgoing. And then some kids are on the opposite end. I tend to find myself there where I'm terrified of making a mistake. I don't want to do anything unless I know I can do it perfectly. And that's kind of an unreal expectation. And it sounds like you maybe fell on that sort of end too. It was,
Yeah, I never thought of it like that before, but that's a good way to put it. I was definitely on that side a little more when I first started teaching.
does that confidence translate into your life at school or with your friends or?
Yeah, actually, in some ways, I took a public speaking class last semester. I got an A on every one of my speeches. I just went up there and spoke.
On That's an amazing accomplishment. That's really hard to do. What's a topic, for example, that you spoke on?
Let's see. I spoke on I talked about one of my favorite cars during one of my speeches, a Chevy Camaro.
Okay. What year Camaro, or was it on?
Well, I mostly did like Camaros throughout the years, though. My personal favorite is like the mid to late '70s, early '80s one.
Nice.
It's the one I like.
Wow, that's fun. Describe what it's like to be in front of an audience of students. And back before COVID, that could have been 40,
Oh
50,
yeah, yeah.
and then a parlor of onlookers too, right? The parents and grandparents and friends and everything. What's that like to give a mat chat?
Yeah, so mat chat is essentially where everyone comes in and, we talk about something, whether it's the word of the month or sometimes we go over the word of the belt too. And we just talk, and then we get the students to talk and give some of their input too. Yeah, that's something too. It's like a little mini speech.
And that's part of what makes them challenging, right? Because some of the students on the mat could be as young as 5,
Oh yeah.
and it's a little bit of philosophy that you're delivering that's relevant to martial arts training as you're trying to keep the attention of listeners, which is challenging.
So usually kind of what I did was I would kind of talk about what it is, kind of tie it back into kind of my life a little bit or give an example of it, and then see if I can get any of the students to come up with an example of whatever the topic we're talking about and how that relates to them, or if they can come up with an example of it.
For an example, last month the word of the month was flexibility. If you were delivering a mat chat on flexibility, what's something that you would ask of students?
I started out with just like talk about flexibility, not how it relates to physically with martial arts, all the kicks and everything. And then I'll talk about how it is mentally, like, how I have to be mentally flexible and adapt to things as well. And this is something that I heard from like another one of the instructors doing a mat chat on the same topic. How I had to be mentally flexible with everything going on because, well, last month was when COVID, a year ago was when COVID started. We had to adapt and be flexible for all the changes that happened from that with the masks and social distancing and training from online, from home too.
For that half circle of kids and adults taking a knee, listening to you, you're challenging them to think about that. What are some ways I need to be flexible? And boom, I'm listening to you and having to think about what are some ways I need to be flexible? What are some ways I'm inflexible?
And then pre-COVID when I was doing the mat chats and everything, like I get a ton of kids that would just like on certain word of the month or something, that would just raise their hand, and I'd have a whole bunch of them that would raise their hand and want to give an example of something.
Moving into another aspect of martial arts training and black belt training is sparring. And while that has changed some during COVID, what's your memory of starting to spar, putting on pads, understanding that?
I was a gold belt
Okay.
At the time, and I just started sparring and was not great at it. I don't remember much from that day. All I remember basically was I was a gold belt starting to spar and everything. And, it's time, and I liked it. It was fun. And then as I moved on, I sparred in tournaments. And then when I got on competition team, I sparred in that too. I was never the greatest at sparring, but it was fun and I liked it.
What's it like being on the competition team and sparring against, for people who don't know, the competition team at Ripple Effect Martial Arts is a select group of students that, like the name implies, compete with other schools from the state, or how regionally?
I think it is throughout the state, and it's not just Taekwondo, the style we do. Though, for instance, in my division, I've competed with guys that do Kempo and a bunch of other styles too.
So that is a whole new level of challenge, right? You're encountering new cultures and languages and styles of fighting, essentially, that you don't necessarily know how to anticipate or deal with. What's it like stepping out, bowing into a sparring match with someone that you don't know?
It's interesting, and I know the match is going to be fun and everything. I've competed on competition team. I did 3 years. I did 2015, 2016, and then 2019. When I competed in 2015 and 2016, I got to know a little, and I got to recognize some of the competitors that I would usually compete with. And then once I got back out there in 2019, I saw the same people, and I was like, oh, I remember competing against you 3 years ago.
Something that somebody told me recently was that you really get to know someone when you spar them. Do you feel like that?
Yeah, yeah. And afterwards, we high five each other and tell each other good job and everything. And then, off this on the sidelines, we'll talk a little bit, and even like during forms too. Like we'll do that too sometimes.
What's your style in sparring?
I like to fight more with my hands. Because I feel like my hands are faster than my legs. I mean, I'll do like a front leg round kick. That's my favorite kick because it's quick. Though, just getting in and just getting in with my hands. That's what I like to do. This was a tournament. I think I want to say summer 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Me and this one guy were sparring, and I took a really good front kick to the chin, and it was all bruised up and everything, and I couldn't tell how bad it was. I had the whole competition team standing there, and they were looking at it and everything, and I was like, oh, "What's so bad?" I got back up and I finished the match, and then I took my phone out and looked at it, and I was like, "Oh, that's what people were looking at because it was all bruised up on my whole chin and everything."
Little badge of honor.
Yeah, yeah, that was my trophy for the day.
Putting yourself at risk is part of it. Would you think that's true?
Yeah, yeah. Just like when we do weapons, like nunchucks, for instance, first one that comes to mind, or bow staff, when we do all the tricks and everything, it's just a part of it that sometimes the nunchuck's gonna whack you, or the bow staff when you're trying to spin it on top of your head is gonna fall,
Mm-hmm.
and it may hit you, and you're gonna get hurt. But that's a part of it. And sparring, I feel, is the same way as well. Like, I mean, we teach the students, control and not to hit that hard, especially to the head and everything. But there are times where accidentally that would happen, and that's just a part of it.
What did you learn to control? We talked a little bit about that, like controlling fear, controlling a worry that you'll fail or something. What have you seen as an instructor in your teaching? How have you used martial arts to help kids come under control of their own impulses?
Yeah, you want to talk, you want to give the instructions, you want to be clear, but at the same time, it is a class full of a bunch of 8-year-olds and 6-year-olds and stuff like that, and they probably won't stay still. So it's just finding the balance of giving clear enough instructions, but not just like boring them, so where they'll start to fidget and lose their attention entirely.
Do you have any martial arts heroes in fiction or in comic books or in video games?
That's interesting. I guess the closest thing I could find is like Cobra Kai. Like
Okay.
I was watching that. I did stay up till midnight on January 1st and binge the first season, or third season.
Yeah.
And I like got used to some of the characters. For those of you who have seen Cobra Kai, it takes place 34 years after the original Karate Kid movie. Johnny Lawrence, the guy that lost to the crane kick in the tournament at the end of the movie, he's trying to find his place as an instructor and everything too, reopening Cobra Kai, and he's a lot more old school than I was. But then again, he's still living in the 80s. I was not born then, so.
I was actually, and I recall very vividly the Karate Kid. It's interesting watching Cobra Kai now and just thinking back, wow, times have changed a lot, but they preserve a
Yeah.
lot about that spirit.
Like some of the main characters are in that like high school level, junior, senior age group as well, and it's interesting seeing the perspective of the original Karate Kid rivalry through them as well.
To finish out, what would you say to anyone who might be listening who's thinking, do I want to enroll my kid or do I want to enroll myself in a martial arts program? Is there anything that you would say to them that was honest about your experience and your expectation that might encourage them to start at white belt?
Yeah, to anyone starting out or thinking of starting out or anything, I'd just say just do it. It was a great experience for me. It was something that I found that I really enjoyed, and it felt like a sport that I could do. There will be a few challenges along your way to black belt, though. It is a very rewarding and good process.
Thank you for listening to the Ripple Effect Martial Arts Podcast. Find episodes and more at rippleeffectmartialarts.com.